Sometimes you're reading or listening to an argument and you come across the word if. If is a signal, a sign, a marker, an indicator that there is a hypothetical premise, that you're being offered a condition. Conditional reasoning gets slightly more complicated by modifications on the concept of if. If, only if and only if are three different ways to discuss a conditional, and whether you're using one or the other changes the entire meaning of the argument. But let's set that aside. We're going to focus on the basic one, the one that goes if ... then ... where the dots are your statements, sentences that are either true or false. Here, in this statement, the condition is the antecedent. Were you to satisfy whatever the antecedent is, then you necessarily get the consequent. For example, if it's raining, then you should take an umbrella. Let's turn this conditional statement about it raining and you needing an umbrella, therefore, into an argument. Premise 1. If it's going to rain. Oh yeah, I forgot. If. On the condition that it's going to rain. Then, the consequent would be that you should take an umbrella. Let's add to our knowledge by adding premise 2. That it's not true that you should take an umbrella. So we're denying the consequent. The conclusion would be then that it's not true that it's going to rain. This is an argument which fits the valid form of modus tollens. The squiggly line is called a tilde. It means that we are denying whatever's following it up to a certain point. It's the negation of Q to say tilde Q. Premise 1 in this argument is if antecedent, then consequent. Here we have if P as the antecedent and Q as the consequent. And premise 2 denies the consequent. The conclusion is that we get to deny the antecedent. It's a valid argument form. Anything you plug in for P or Q, meaning anything that you use as an antecedent or a consequent, so long as you do so consistently, will give you a valid argument. There is a conditional statement in the valid argument form of modus ponens and modus tollens. Both of these have as a necessary condition, if P then Q. Modus ponens, the mode of putting, puts in the antecedent and the conclusion is the consequent. Modus tollens, the mode of denying by denying, denies the consequent and the conclusion is the denial of the antecedent. Another valid argument form is a disjunctive syllogism, which does not have a conditional. Either A or B, not A, therefore B. Disjunctive syllogism and modus ponens and modus tollens are all valid argument forms. So long as the letters you're using or the content represented by the letters you're using are consistent, you will have a valid argument because you use the valid argument form. Whether a deductive argument is valid or not has nothing to do with the truth of the conclusion. It has more to do with the relationship between the premises and the conclusion in that argument. If you have a cookie cutter shaped into a heart or a circle, let's say a circle, you take that cookie cutter and you put it on dough, on flour that's been rolled, on mortar or concrete, on marshmallow or gum, you'll get a circle. No matter what you do, because you use that form, that circular form of the cookie cutter. The material you're using doesn't matter. Analogously, logical deductive arguments have forms. And whatever content you put in, whatever information, whatever you're arguing about, so long as you appropriately use the valid argument form, you will always get a valid argument. The only way to prove the conclusion of this argument false is to show that one or both of the premises are false. And even then, it'll be a valid argument that's not sound. The same is true for modus ponens, the same is true for modus tollens, the same is true for any valid argument form. Your conclusion is necessarily true so long as all your premises are true. That's all that valid means. This argument fits the form of modus tollens. That means that this argument has a necessarily true conclusion so long as all the premises are true. We're not saying that the premises are true. We're not saying that the conclusion is true. We're saying that this argument has a valid form. Which form? The form of modus tollens. So its conclusion is true if the premises are true.